The two north-central Midwestern states of North and South Dakota have a lot in common, especially historically and physically. But there are some notable differences. Let's explore both in the latest State Comparison Series episode. North Dakota and South Dakota are two states with generally low populations. However, they both have rich histories. Before European contact, the Dakota Territory was inhabited by Native American tribes such as the Sioux and Mandan. These tribes were deeply connected to the land, engaging in farming, hunting, and trading. The first Europeans to explore the area were French fur traders in the 18th century. The region then became a focus of American expansion in the 19th century. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803, which included present-day North and South Dakota, marked the beginning of a considerable shift. The Lewis and Clark expedition further explored these lands. The discovery of gold in the Black Hills in 1874 attracted thousands of miners and settlers, leading to conflicts with Native American tribes. The defeat of the Sioux at the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876 and the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890 were pivotal events, marking the end of major Native American resistance in the region. The arrival of railroads in the 19th century facilitated migration and economic development. In 1889, the Dakota Territory was divided into two states, North Dakota and South Dakota, both admitted into the Union on November 2, 1889. This division was driven by political and economic factors as well as population growth. Throughout the 20th century, both states experienced economic fluctuations heavily influenced by agriculture. The Dust Bowl of the 1930s hit hard, leading to a wave of migration out of the Dakotas. Post-World War II, both states saw modernization and economic diversification with a growing focus on services, healthcare, and education. Today, North and South Dakota are known for their rich cultural heritage, including Native American traditions, and for natural landmarks such as the Black Hills and Badlands. The states also play a significant role in American agriculture and energy production. In today's State Comparison Series episode, we are going to focus on both the physical and human geographies of North and South Dakota. In terms of physical geography, we will review three main factors: geomorphology, meteorology, and ecology, while with human geography, we will review four main factors: demography, urbanization, economy, and geopolitics. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to my channel, Our World, Our Planet, Our Home, if you enjoy learning about geography and earth science. Let's get started. By being in the Midwest, much of the geomorphology of North and South Dakota is flat, but there are some variations. In eastern North Dakota, the landscape is mostly associated with flat plains with small deviations in elevation. The lowest elevation, the Red River of the north of the Canadian border, is in the far northeastern part of the state at an elevation of 864 feet. The overall average elevation of North Dakota is 1,901 feet, lower than the U.S. average of 2,500 feet, but higher than many low eastern and southeastern states. Heading west, North Dakota begins to increase in elevation, and some altitudes are 3,000 feet plus. The highest peak is White Butte in the southwestern part of the state at an elevation of 3,506 feet. This peak isn't really a mountain, but rather an isolated steep hill. Heading to South Dakota, the state has a similar geomorphological profile to its northern sister state, but overall elevation is higher. The eastern part of South Dakota is within the Great Plains and is flat for the most part, with small elevation increases and decreases. And the lowest elevation, Big Stone Lake, at an elevation of 965 feet and bordering Minnesota, is situated here. Westward, the state starts to increase in elevation, more so than North Dakota. One notable mountain range is the Black Hills, an isolated mountain system within the southwestern area. This is where the highest peak, Black Elk Peak, at an elevation of 7,244 feet, is located. In addition, Mount Rushmore, a monument honoring Presidents George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, and Theodore Roosevelt, is within this mountain range. Meteorologically, North and South Dakota have very similar climatic patterns. Their location within the continental interior makes them susceptible to extreme temperature variations. In fact, North Dakota holds the record for the largest temperature increase in a 12-hour period on February 21, 1918, when the temperature increased from 33 below to 50 degrees. Between June and September, the state experiences warm to hot and moderately humid summers with some rain. However, hot air from the south can build up above the state and produce intense heat waves, with the all-time record high temperature reaching 121 degrees. On the contrary, winters are long, cold, and snowy. By being flat and exposed to Arctic air from Canada, North Dakota gets cold as early as October, and snow can start falling at that time of the year. This pattern usually lasts well into April, with some snow falling as late as May. The all-time record low for North Dakota is 60 below zero. During the spring months, hot and cold air masses produce the potential for severe weather and tornadoes, along with hailstorms that are common occurrences. South Dakota has the same continental climate as North Dakota, but since it's further south, it's slightly warmer, but not much. Summers in the state are warm to hot and relatively humid with some rain. Like North Dakota and much of the Great Plains, extreme summer temperatures occur. The highest temperature recorded in South Dakota was 120 degrees, a degree cooler than North Dakota. However, average summertime temperatures for cities within the state are warmer than its northern neighbor. The record low for South Dakota was 58 below, but usually the state sees somewhat warmer wintertime temperatures. However, it still has an extreme continental climate. On to ecology, both states have many similarities, so much that it can be explained together. Each has ecosystems that include forest and prairie lands. In the eastern half of North and South Dakota, much of it is covered by a mixture of deciduous mixed forest and more precipitated prairie lands. Since rainfall is adequate here, the biomass is substantial. Westward, both states experience drier, almost semi-arid continental climates, and much of the land is covered in prairie lands which do not receive much precipitation. The only exceptions are within the higher elevated mountainous areas where rainfall, especially on the windward side of the mountain, is higher, contributing to a mixture of deciduous and coniferous forest. In terms of animal life, North and South Dakota have many different species. One unique one is the American bison, a buffalo that is threatened but still lives in certain areas of the western prairie lands of both states. Other mammalian species include the white-tailed deer, black bear, bighorn sheep, and coyote, while avian species include the American bald eagle, snowy owls, and pheasants. On the human geography, North and South Dakota have similarities but notable differences. Of the Dakotas, North Dakota is the lesser populated one with almost 784,000 residents, making it the fourth least populated state in the United States. In terms of the racial makeup, the state is majority white with 82.9%, but initially it had a majority Native American population until the late 19th century. Still, Native Americans represent 5% of the population, higher than the U.S. average. Other races include individuals of two or more races at 5.4%, Hispanics at 4.3%, blacks at 3.4%, and Asians at 1.7%. Ethnically, Germans make up the highest group, and there are large percentages of Scandinavians who immigrated there, including Norwegians, Swedes, and Icelandics. South Dakota has a higher population than its northern neighbor, but not by much, with a little over 919,000 residents, making it the fourth least populated state. Racially, the state is quite like North Dakota, with 80.7% of the population white, but the Native American population is a bit higher at 8.5%, ranked fourth in percentage nationwide. Other than that, Hispanics make up 4.3%, individuals of two or more races make up 2.8%, blacks 2.6%, and Asians 1.8%. Like North Dakota, South Dakota's largest ethnic group are Germans, followed by Norwegians, Irish, and Native Americans. Since both North and South Dakota have low populations, urbanization patterns within both states are isolated. North Dakota's largest city is Fargo, with a population of 131,444 residents and is located on the border with Minnesota. Bismarck, the state capital, is the second largest city with a little over 74,000. These two cities and their metropolitan areas represent half of North Dakota's total population. Many of the other larger cities would be classified as small to moderately sized communities. And most of the land within the state is considered rural and made up of mostly farmland. In terms of transportation, much of it is car-orientated. Two major interstates traverse the state, I-94 from west to east and I-29 from south to north, and they both go through urbanized areas. Having a slightly higher population, South Dakota has slightly larger cities. Sioux Falls, near the Minnesota and Iowa borders in the southeastern part, is the state's largest city with over 202,000 residents. Second to it is Rapid City in the western part of the state with almost 79,000 residents. Both cities in their metropolitan areas represent around half of the state's population, similarly to North Dakota. One interesting fact about South Dakota is its state capital, Pierre, which is the second smallest capital within the United States, with just over 14,000 residents. With transportation, South Dakota has two interstates traversing the state. I-90, the longest interstate in the United States, running west to east through the state, and I-29, running south to north. Economically, North and South Dakota have diversified their economies in recent decades. In the last 20 years or so, North Dakota has seen rapidly increasing GDPs and per capita incomes, with a total state GDP of $71.5 billion and a per capita income of $91,000 a year, ranking it in the top tier nationwide. The state has experienced an economic boom due to the discovery and exploitation of oil in the Bakken Formation. This has made North Dakota one of the top oil-producing states in the country, significantly impacting its economy. Historically, North Dakota's economy has been heavily reliant on agriculture. It is one of the largest producers of barley, sunflower seeds, and wheat in the United States. And the tertiary service sector does play a role in economic output, particularly in the urbanized areas with educational and healthcare institutions. Companies headquartered in North Dakota include the Bobcat Company, a leading manufacturer of compact construction equipment, Gate City Bank, a prominent financial institution offering a range of banking services, and Noridian Healthcare Solutions, a major player in the healthcare industry providing administrative services to federal and state healthcare programs. South Dakota has a total state GDP of $69.5 billion and a per capita income of $76,000 a year, both lower than North Dakota, but still higher than the national average. Agriculture remains a cornerstone of South Dakota's economy. The state is a major producer of corn, soybeans, wheat, and sunflowers. It also has a significant livestock industry, particularly in cattle and hogs. South Dakota has a notably large financial and banking sector. The state's favorable banking laws have attracted numerous financial institutions. Sioux Falls, in particular, is a hub for banks and credit card companies. Manufacturing in South Dakota includes food processing, electronics, and machinery. The state also has a growing sector in renewable energy equipment manufacturing. Companies headquartered in South Dakota include Sanford Health, one of the largest health systems in the United States, Raven Industries, a company specializing in various sectors including applied technology, engineered films, and aerospace, and Daktronics, a world leader in designing and manufacturing electronic scoreboards, programmable display systems, and large-screen video displays. The geopolitics of North and South Dakota have intricate histories. The first two elections that both states voted in were in the 1892 presidential election. In that election, North Dakota split its three electoral votes, giving one to Democrat winner Grover Cleveland, one to Republican Benjamin Harrison, and one to third-party populist candidate James B. Weaver. After that, North Dakota went back and forth between Democrats and Republicans until the mid-1960s. After the 1964 election, the state has voted exclusively for Republican presidential candidates and is seen as a safe red state. However, the state has some progressive leanings. including being the only state in the nation with a state-owned bank, and also by having a somewhat progressive income tax structure. With the U.S. Senate, North Dakota has 2 Republican senators, John Hoeven and Kevin Cramer, and 1 Republican House member, Kelly Armstrong. On the state level, the governor is Republican Doug Burgum, who was elected in 2016, re-elected in 2020, and ran for president as a Republican candidate for the 2024 presidential election, but ultimately dropped out and endorsed Donald Trump. As mentioned before, South Dakota's first presidential election was the same year as North Dakota's, 1892, but in that election, the state gave all its electoral votes to losing Republican candidate Benjamin Harrison. Then in the 1896 election, the state chose losing Democratic candidate William Jennings Bryan. In the first 10 years of the 20th century, South Dakota voted for all Republicans, and then in the 1912 election, the state gave its electoral votes to third-party progressive candidate and former Republican President Theodore Roosevelt, the only time this happened in the state's presidential electoral history. Throughout the rest of the 20th century, South Dakota voted back and forth between Democrats and Republicans, and then after the 1964 election, it voted for all Republican candidates, solidifying it as a red state. In the U.S. Senate, South Dakota has 2 Republican senators, John Thune and Mike Rounds, and within the House of Representatives, 1 Republican member, Dusty Johnson. On the state level, South Dakota has a Republican governor, Kristi Noem, who was elected in 2018 and re-elected in 2022. Because of the state's Republican leanings, it has the lowest per capita income tax rate in the U.S., along with conservative social policies. Even though North and South Dakota are among the smallest states in the United States in terms of population, they both have interesting and intriguing histories that have shaped who they are today. Also, both states have seen population increases, most likely linked to the booming oil industry, particularly in North Dakota, and favorable tax rates. Still, physical factors such as extreme weather may inhibit some people from moving there. That concludes today's State Comparison Series episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to leave your feedback, please do so in the comment section below. And be sure to subscribe to my channel, Our World, Our Planet, Our Home, for more interesting geography and earth science videos. Until next time!